And yeah, so if you are interested in how to re-envision a curriculum and pedagogical changes to be implemented in, for example, a 9th grade classroom, and especially in stuff like ethno-astronomy or astronomy education, you are very good at this spot right here, and can be very curious about this presentation. So it's about not only astronomical concepts and phenomena and how they can be reimagined, or reimagined how to teach and learn from them, but also about technological didactical issues surrounding that. Sorry, you just lost connection right here, but I think you can still hear me. So Richard, the stage is yours. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Tobias. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Very good.
Okay. Oh, excellent. It's telling me that my camera, the media, has an error. So I can't see myself, and I could earlier.
Yeah, we are not able to see you as well.
Right.
So there seems to be some issues right here, because my webcam is deactivating as well from time to time. But don't worry about it. We can see your presentation at the moment, okay. And so, we can also see your mouse moving. So everything seems fine from here on.
Okay, so I'm going to just go through this audio-wise. Sorry about this, folks. I get an error 1020 on the top of my screen that says the media cannot reach my camera.
I'll try to figure out in the background together with the Pixel guys if we can do something about it. And,
so thanks so much.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry that you can't see me at this point, but my name is Richard, and please pardon that G and Cameron, they're actually teaching right now because it's 10 in the morning over here. So they're in class, and I am giving the talk on their behalf. So let me just tell you quickly about who we are. So I work at the University of Manitoba. I am shared between the Faculty of Education and the Department of Physics and Astronomy. And my main job is to teach in-service and pre-service teachers how to teach physics and what that would look like and what that is in a Canadian context. And that really is what this talk is about. So we have 12 teachers, and I'm going to show you a little bit about UDINA in a second, because I made a little video for everyone to see. There are 12 teachers that joined us for this opportunity at what we call the UDINA Celebration Circle. And just so everybody can understand the context of why we were doing this, these 3 specific learning outcomes are in our curriculum. Now, the curriculum is designed by the province, and we do not have a curriculum for all of Canada. So every province is its own jurisdiction and decides what should be in the curriculum for all grade levels. So these 3 are from grade 9. And you can see here that we introduce the idea of cultural knowledge and cultural perspectives within this astronomy cluster. So for all of you listening, and I appreciate that many of you are, I wish I could see you, but I cannot. You can see that we place an emphasis in Manitoba, that's the province that I live in cultural knowledge and trying to make our science curriculum a little bit more inclusive, because we have a very diverse population in Canada and we celebrate different cultures and ethnicities and religions and people. So we want to make them part of our curriculum as opposed to just teaching science through one, we'll say Eurocentric, no offense to all of you in Europe, through the lens that usually is typically how science is taught. So with this as a perspective, I'm going to show you the UDINA circle, and I made this video for you. You should see this in a moment here. I think
yes, it seems to work.
Okay.
Yes, it works.
This is where we were. So this is a place, and I think you can see me now, right?
Yes, that's right. I just dropped
You
you a
can see me
line.
perfectly. That's
Message.
fantastic. So I wanted to show this for everybody to show that this is where we were. This is a free location. It is in the middle of our city at a place called the Forks. It's because there are two rivers that meet there. It's the Fork and the river. And this is where we met. So let me tell you about what this is. We used Roger Bybee's 5E framework to really guide us. The teachers came voluntarily. It was a free PD event because that's how I do things here in Manitoba. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk everybody through the 5Es that we used to have a sense of how this went. The first thing we did was, of course, we engaged and we asked the questions, like, where are we? And why is this important? So for those of you who don't know what ethnoastronomy is, I'm sure almost everybody in here does. Ethnoastronomy is the idea that every culture has their own connection to the night sky or to the sky in general. And through that, there's a sense of knowledge and stories that we can share and learn from. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on, but this piece is what most of my research program is. For those of you that I know, you know that I travel the world and do ethnoastronomy research pretty much all over the world, mostly about the Northern Lights, but I can talk to any of you later if you want to about this. So the question was, where were we? Why were we there? And how can we introduce this into our curriculum? So we started, the next part of the 5Es was to just walk around. Now, I know for teachers, especially here right now, we don't have a lot of time for this. You know, trying to do the hybrid models and COVID, and are we teaching from home or are we teaching from the school or from the lab? This was the time that we just walked around. We walked around with a partner, we looked, we listened. And I have to tell you, for those of you who are not astronomy folks, if you go outside at night when it's dark and it's quiet, there's a sound, there's a nature that comes with this. It sort of feeds your soul. And that was part of what we did with this. That first beginning explore was about connecting with the environment that we were in. We then did the second part, which was really a jigsaw structure. Each pair had a different star formation to look at. And if you saw from that video, we have Egyptian constellations, we have indigenous constellations, we have Arab constellations, we have European constellations. So even though they're the same, we started looking at them from their different cultural origins. We then got back together, we'll talk about that later, and we shared those. So in this part, we just explored. It was a lot of fun, and in fact, it was a beautiful night for it, which was amazing. We then got together, and one thing that I have to point out, and in fact, this might be the most important thing about this, is that we had to make sure that we recognize that we're not pretending to be Egyptian or Arab or indigenous if we are not. I am not, right? I'm a Caucasian Jewish Canadian. I am not any of those other things. So we have to make sure that when we teach ethnoastronomy and we bring cultural knowledges into your classroom, which is what this was all about, that we don't pretend to be what we are not. So there's no cultural appropriation that happens here. And that was super important. What we did together is that we designed these star journals. So we each had a journal, we used them, we wrote them down, we drew pictures, we took notes, and we asked questions. And you can see on the screen there, the beginning questions. Why are we only seeing some star formations this time, at this time and this night? Why are they only available in different seasons, and what are the seasons? And why what we can see in northern Canada is not the same of what people can see in Chile or Portugal or any other country that we would be in. So these were our beginning questions. And I have to say that part of the next part of this was asking, I would say, bigger questions. Why do the star formations mean different things to different people? And how can we celebrate that in our classroom in a way that we're still learning physics? We're still learning the astronomy, but we're learning it through a richer lens. We're learning it through a way that we can include more people. And for us here in Canada and for us in Manitoba, this is super important. So after we were done talking to each other, explaining, we then got into, as you introduced, and I appreciated that, Tobias, the idea of where our pedagogy fits with all of this. Because I have to admit that sometimes we lose perspective when we try new things. And I know I'm super guilty of that. I'll try a new idea or a new experience, and I'll forget the pedagogical point, and I'll be like, what am I doing this for? So the first thing we did is we took a micro view. And that micro view was the idea of how does this fit into our classroom today? How can we teach astronomy that is more inclusive, that is mitigating othering and racism, and has that social activism piece built into it, but not losing the science content that we teach? How can we make this learning a little bit more, I'm going to say, proactive and timely and relevant? And that conversation then bled into the macro view. How can we make really children and students who are better informed citizens, who are more accepting, who are not, as much as we can, racist or homophobic? Because these things we have no tolerance for here. So with that in mind, we had that micro view, then a macro view. And then we said, well, what is missing from the curriculum? What can we introduce into the curriculum? And where does this cultural knowledge fit in, especially in science? And I know I see the names on the side of the screen here, all of you who are wonderful science education scholars and educators. Science is not usually the place for some of these discussions, but over here, we're having them, and they're hard, which is why we needed an event like this. So the last thing we did, of course, the last E would be evaluate, and I just wanted to sort of take a sidestep on this because I want to respect the other people's time here and not go too far. We worked in pairs, and that was partly just to help people not feel like the spotlight was on them, because this is hard stuff, right? Talking about how we can make our curriculum more multicultural, how to bring in really people from all backgrounds is not easy and sometimes not even comfortable. So we worked in pairs to help, not make it so much that it's about one person. The other thing that we did, of course, is that we developed a professional learning community for after this. And I have to say, this was a while back now, and the PLC about this is amazing. So the people are still talking to each other about how, and they're all from different schools. So how can we bring this into their classrooms? Last but not least, again, respectful of the time, why do this? And this is a question I have to admit to all of you. This is a question I get often when I travel and give talks like this around the world. Why am I doing this? Because some people will say, well, this cultural knowledge of the sky and astronomy has no place in science. And, if I could fight them, I probably would. I don't, but I would. This is really important for where we live. Now, for many of you, this may not be relevant to you, and I appreciate you sticking around to listen anyways. But where I live, the idea of people are people, and they have just as much a place in our classrooms as anybody else. And more importantly, the sky belongs to everyone. It doesn't really matter who you are. It belongs to you. So if we bring that into our classrooms, that's something that we need to fight for, and that's why we do this. Next steps of this, quite candidly, we're just going to keep doing this, and we're looking for different ways to do this, because astronomy, I think, is the gateway to a lot of this, and thankfully I have the background for it, but there are other areas in science education that this could apply to. So we're looking for ways to do that, and we're working together. Because I can assure you, I have no interest in being a top-down methodology. We're all in this together. We do this collaboratively, and I'm very proud of that. So with that in mind, on behalf of G and Cam and myself, I thank you. And if any of you want to talk about this further or talk about opportunities that maybe we could exchange some information or help you with some of your thinking on this, just email me anytime. I'm on sabbatical this year. Unfortunately, with COVID, I'm on sabbatical from my living room couch, which is unfortunate because I had planned to be in Russia, Sweden, and Israel, but I am not. So here I am in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, enjoying my sabbatical. So any of you, the invitation is open. Contact me anytime. I'd love to talk about this.
Very good. Thank you, Richard, for this lovely presentation, and we're sending our greetings to the morning in on your side from the evening in Europe here. So are there any questions? Do you guys have questions for Richard? Otherwise, you can see his contact details right now, which is first name dot last name Richard Hechter at Manitoba.
Although I like the way you said it, Tobias. Really, it sounds so much better. That's a great question. Thanks so much for that comment. I'll just answer it because I can see it. To be honest with you, JJAZ2CO, I don't have good ones. In fact, when I started doing this, I found myself being very contentious and giving sort of snappy answers back, and that wasn't helpful at all because it only helped to exacerbate the problem. So my best strategy for handling the pushback is how I handle it, is I let everybody have their moment to talk. I respect that people have their own perspective on this. I share mine, I respect theirs, and say that, you know, perhaps I'm sorry that we don't see eye to eye on this, and that's okay. But I'm going to continue doing this because this is what I think is really important, and this is where I feel that I'm contributing to education. So I know that's somewhat of a passive answer, but it's the only answer I have, is to respect their voices and then go from there. If they still want to fight, that's too bad. I have other things in my life I should be fighting for more than someone giving me pushback for trying to make the world more inclusive and to mitigate othering and racism. If whoever, I don't know who you are, JJAZ2ZO, but if you want to contact me later on, hi Janelle Johnson. If you'd like to contact me at some point, we could have a FaceTime chat or something, because part of my work is really emanating now from the anti-Semitism that I find. Because when I talk about this, people say, oh, you're just doing this because you're white, or oh, you're only doing this because you're Jewish. And I had a talk in London, England last summer, and people were anti-Semitic to me during my plenary talk. And that was, it was unbelievable. But that's a whole other story for another time. So Janelle, if you want to contact me anytime, I'd love to talk more about this with you. Tobias, I want to be respectful of everybody else.
Yeah, perhaps you could give us a very, very short answer to this last question. Here's one you can see in the chat right now that just came up, and perhaps you can take another minute to answer that. That would be great, and everyone else I would like to ask to contact you via email.
Okay, so unfortunately my answer to that is not very succinct. So NFOTOU, can you contact me later, and perhaps we could talk about this later on, just to have respect for everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Tobias, thanks for moderating this, and I appreciate the extra minute you gave me here.
Yeah, thanks for the very, very inspiring talk that you gave. Thank you, Richard.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Nicolas.
All right, Nicola, I'm just gonna be very quick with presenting you, Nicola.